Hey guys, welcome back to another fantastic episode of Falcor's Mighty Adventures. Playing around here in Egypt, the land of the old gods. Pretty cool. I actually like Egypt a lot. Both RL Egypt and Titan Quest Egypt. But anyway, my lips are really parched, so whenever I smile it hurts. It sucks. Like this is very painful. But anyway, I can't help myself. Today beard check, by the way. That's how my beard's looking. Pretty freaking ridiculous if you ask me. But yeah, that's just you guys wanted to see how it looks, just how it grows naturally, and now you've got it. um, I warned you it's gonna be like a mustache. Makes me feel kind of like a Confucius looking guy. No? I look kind of like Confucius. Yes, run like the grasshopper, sting like a bee. Anyway, today, moving on. Today we're gonna talk about a thing that anyone who's ever been in a hospital for a long time needs to deal with, and that is a mixture of boredom, of course. I bet everyone's thinking like, what the hell did you do for like a month or 2 months at a time in a hospital? One's boredom, right? And the other one is what I would only call prison anxiety or solitary confinement anxiety, which is basically, the way I see it, it's you spend so much time laying down in a bed, staring at the ceiling or staring at a screen. You know, if you've got a TV, if you're lucky. I was lucky, I had a TV. Spend so much time staring at that screen and you know, sleeping and things like that. As I said previously, sleep is like one of your best friends. Really, like that's the best way to make time pass. So you know, you spend a lot of time in bed. Eventually, you know, they tell you got to start moving around more. And but like, let's be fair. Everyone who says they you know, they spend time working out and things like that. No, you didn't. Like I want to meet the one person in the world that actually worked out while getting chemo. No, the truth is you spend 95% of your time in bed watching TV. But what happens is this, maybe sometimes you're feeling okay, like you're not feeling anything bad, but sometimes you get this sort of anxiety attack. It's not that severe, it really depends on your personality, but sometimes what happens is you start looking around and you think, and geez, even thinking about it makes me kind of anxious, but you look around at your tiny room and you think, crap, when am I ever going to leave this place? And that's the thought that triggers the anxiety, because you're like, I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to go home. I don't know how long I'm going to stay here. And then the walls sort of like they sort of come closer, and you're like, oh God, you close your eyes, and this is what I want to talk about today. What can you do to make that anxiety go away? And there are some techniques, you know. I read that there's like something called sensory grounding, which is one of the things that the psychologist recommended me when I was in the hospital, which is basically you have to look at 5 things. You have to look around your room and identify 5 things that you can see, and then 4 things that you can hear, and then 3 things that you can smell, I think 2 things that you can touch, and what the well, one thing that was the third, what's the 5th sense? I forgot. Well, you get what I'm saying. Basically that, like you gotta like think of all your senses. You gotta like ground them, and that works, I admit, but eventually it gets old, like, because okay, roll with me. Let's think this through, okay? You're spending 2 months in the hospital, and the psychologist says you gotta ground your senses. Okay, so you ground them once. You look at 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear. Then you ground again after, like, what? Let's say the next day. You ground yourself again. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? It's always going to be the same. Genius. So grounding doesn't help. Eventually, sorry if you're going through anxiety right now, but grounding only works if you're traveling around the world and you've got like always changing. You're always changing your surroundings and things like that. So grounding didn't help me with my anxiety. Luckily, I didn't have much anxiety. But what did help me was like this thing that I wanted to actually tell you about today. You spend a lot of time thinking about your past, right? And what I did was that I started to think, what are the most relaxing memories that I have? You know, ever since I was born. I was like, okay, you're born. And like I imagined my childhood, you know, in different countries, and I'm like, what's the most relaxing moments I had? Like, I'm sure there's got to be like a top 3. And I'm going to tell you these top 3 most relaxing memories I have of my entire life, because they pretty much saved me from myself, from getting anxiety and things like that. The first one was actually when I was a little kid. This is the strongest memory I have. Strongest, like, happy, relaxing memory. I was in Hungary with my little brother, and in Hungary we used to live with my grandfather, who lived in this really old house that was built by gypsies. And it was basically where we went to for summer, you know. And you know, every summer was the same. Basically, we took the PlayStation that we had, the PS1, and we had a garden, and we even had a pool eventually, one of those pools with like thin walls. Again, a gift from my grandfather. And so, you know, we pretty much had everything a kid would want for the summer. If it's really hot and boring outside, we would play PlayStation, and if we were bored of the PlayStation, or our grandfather told us to stop being such square heads, like he'd call us, you know, we would have to spend our time outside, like peasants. And yeah, so we would spend a lot of time there in Hungary every summer, and my memory, the happy memory, was waking up. I'd wake up usually before my little brother. We would sleep in the same bed. We had like a king-size bed, and we would sleep there together. And it was the main bedroom, the master bedroom. My grandfather would give us the master bedroom so we could sleep tight and well, nice and warm. Anyway, I'd wake up, and my brother would still be sleeping there, snoring, because my little brother snores. And I would think about every detail that I could possibly think of. So I'd wake up, I'd look around. I remember the smell of the house. It was like this, like really old wood smell, and the floors were covered in carpets, but the places that weren't covered in carpets had tile. There wasn't any wood. Every furniture you could think of there was dusty and very old, and basically a collection of things that my grandfather picked up around his travels around the world. He traveled a lot. And I remember, like, you know, you walk out and you have to like not step on the nails, because there were nails coming out of the ground where the doors would be were placed. There were nails on the floor, so you'd have to dodge the nails. and then I'd open the door that had like a window on it, and the window would shake when you opened it. You know, just details like that. And I'd walk out to the living room and I'd see my grandfather sitting down reading the newspaper. And the TV would be off, and he'd be like, "Hey, little buddy." And I'd be like, "Hi, Grandpa." And he'd be like, "Well, how did you sleep, little old buddy, old pal?" All of this in Hungarian, of course. And I'm like, "I slept well." And he'd be like, what did you dream?" And I'd be like, "I didn't dream anything." And he'd look at me away from his newspaper, and he'd be like, "That's a shit dream, kid." And every day, every morning, it would be the same. "That's a shit dream, kid. You want some coffee?" And I'd be like, "I can't drink coffee, grandfather." And he's like, "Oh, come on. When I was your age, I was drinking coffee every day." And I'm like, "No, I want some hot chocolate." And he already waited with the hot chocolate. He was just fooling around. That was my grandfather. And sometimes he would, because my grandfather was an engineer, and he actually dedicated a lot of years to making toys. So sometimes he would make me toys out of wood. Like, I remember he once made me like this truck that this like wooden truck with wheels, and the truck had like the pickup parts in the back, and the back was full of different size and shapes of like wooden shapes, blocks and circles and cylinders and stuff. And of course, when you're a kid, like at that age, you can tell when something's handcrafted. And I didn't like handcrafted toys. They sucked. I wanted, store-bought plastic toys. And he came up with this truck, and I'm so mean. He's like, "Here, I got you this." And I'm like, "Grandpa, this toy sucks." So mean. And he's like, and you know what? Rather than say something like, "Oh, you little ungrateful bastard, blah, 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 like, how dare you, I made this for you." No, that's not my grandfather. My grandfather would be like, "Really, boy? Why does it suck?" And I'd be like, "Well, first of all, it doesn't have any colors. It's just wood." And, the wheels don't move. And I don't know what to do with this toy. And he's like, "Very interesting." And so he'd be like, "Can I borrow it back?" And I'm like, "Yeah, keep it." Whatever, I don't want it. And maybe a week later, he would come back with the same truck and be like, "What about now?" And I'd look at the truck, and it had color. It had a really good matte finish. Like, it felt good in my hands, and the wheels worked, and the shapes were colorful and they fit perfectly. And I'm like, "Grandpa, this toy is fucking awesome." And I really meant it. Like, I kind of felt sad because, I'd been mean to him. But at the same time, rather than lose his shit, my grandfather said, "Okay, we can draw a circle around this problem and find a solution." Life-changing. This changed, these tiny little details in my life absolutely changed me. Like, I wasn't the same person after that. And sometimes, I complain about things, but I have inherited from him this, what I call a problem-solving mentality, where it's like, we can argue about this or we can find a solution, and it takes time to develop this. When I was still a kid, I was still a complainy pants. But today, as an agricultural engineer, maybe that even helped with the engineering too. It's like, yeah, we can complain and complain and complain, or we can find a solution, And that's something I learned from my grandfather. And so that memory, I kind of went a little too deep in there, but I felt like there was a story worth talking about. The memory of the house, the smells, every detail, it was a sort of, kind of like a grounding, but rather than running out of things that I can think of, it became a game where it was, what things can you remember? And I remembered a whole bunch of smells and sounds and things like that. And of course, my grandfather, um, you know, probably the most important part of that memory. Uh, oh, I'm gonna die again here. So yeah, that's one of the memories, and that's the memory I used when I had like anxiety, because it really, first of all, it took a lot of time in my brain to remember all those details and you know, things like that. But apart from that, it was just very relaxing because I was living my life as a kid again with no problems, you know, nowhere near thinking about cancer and nowhere near a hospital. It was just a little tiny kid, Mr. Farkas. He had no idea about anything. So that's one of the memories. The other memory I used was a memory I needed to use when I needed to calm down. Not from anxiety, but from anger. Because sometimes you get weird emotions when you're in a situation like this. And sometimes you need a very calming memory. So the first memory helps you ground yourself, right? It was the one with my grandfather. Second memory is a memory I used to calm my emotions. And what was this memory? Well, a few years ago, I went on a camping trip with a friend of mine called Rooster. And Rooster is the best camping buddy you could imagine. Easily, like, we didn't have a single problem. Like, we knew each other relatively okay. You know, we're good friends, but like, we're those friends that like we hang out 3 times in a lifetime, and we're already best pals, like brothers. You know, that's Rooster. We would joke all the time, and we were both pretty adept at survival skills. We're both huge fans of primitive survival and camping. He's more of a get the best gear that is available in the world, and I'm more of a let's work with what we have in nature. You know, 2 kinds of survivalists, basically. And together, we made an excellent team, because I'd be the one making the fires, not using up the fuel, and he'd be the one who would provide the protein bars when we were running low on energy, the high quality camping gear and things like that. So yeah, basically, I'd go camping with Rooster. We went twice. The first time is the day when I met him, when I was with another group of campers. And the second time we were like, we're just going to go just the 2 of us and see what happens. So anyway, we go to this really far away sort of camp because what you do, we went to Patagonia, and Patagonia is basically the holy grail of camping, in my opinion. The more south you go, the wilder it gets. So if you're a noob and you don't know what you're doing, then you stay. Ooh, that's pretty cool. Then you stay close to the north. You know, you don't go too south, because you know the weather gets worse. There's less settlements. There's fewer settlements, fewer hotels, fewer hostels. Eventually it's just you against the land. So of course that's where we went with Rooster. We went to a place close to Calafate, and Calafate is pretty hard country, but it's good. It's a good place. It'll purify your soul. So we went to a place in Calafate, far away from the hotels and the settlements and things like that. I think it was 40 kilometers away. We made it in a day. Actually, we made it pretty quick. And we walked there and we found this perfect place to camp. There was, I think, 1 more group there, but everyone keeps to themselves in Calafate because they're all seasoned camping veterans. So we would just say hello to everyone. Do you need anything? Do you have food? Do you have water? Yes, yes, yes. Thank you very much. Okay, you know, just basic politeness that you see in campers, especially the serious campers. Leave no man behind mentality. And And we were there, and Rooster, who was the cook from our team, you know, him and I, Rooster was like, okay, how about some rice and some meat? And I'm like, sure. Need help? He's like, no, I'm gonna cook alone. And we ate together. You know, eventually, what do you do when you're camping? You just do whatever you want. So I went to pick some berries, some ground berries that grow around there, and I think Rooster spent his time reading, and I remember I was picking berries. I picked enough berries to trade for some cigarettes from the other campers there, and basically like a handful of edible berries, pretty sought after by the tourists there. Because they don't know about the berries, that you can eat them, and so you eat them in front of them, and then you can trade them for cigarettes or some rice, you know, things like that. And at some point I picked enough berries, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. And I see this log, and it starts to rain, like very lightly. It's heavy rain, but the droplets are so small that you barely feel it, you know. And it was windy, and I find this log that's like under a tree, and I sit on the log. I'm just so relaxed just thinking about it. I sit on the log, and I had a cigarette with me, Parliament, which is like the Dom Perignon of cigarettes, in my opinion. I take out a cigarette, I light it, and I just look at the wind, because the rain was the droplets were so tiny that the wind would move them left and right and up and down, and I just look at the rain like it was some kind of force, something I'd never seen with my eyes. Kind of like I was looking at the wind moving, and I'm like, whoa, like this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. And I was like fed, I had no hunger, I had no thirst, I was smoking that delicious Parliament cigarette. I wasn't feeling cold or warm. I felt like the wind was blowing right through me, and I was just looking at this relaxing, like sort of dance of the wind going left and right, and I got this feeling that like the world was saying, hey buddy, everything's gonna be all right. No reason, like I had no problems in my life. I was living my dream, just being outside in Calafate, one of my best pals, you know, by my side in the back cooking. No, not cooking, maybe, I don't know, reading or something. And then me just there like looking at the wind that I'd never seen with my eyes before. I only saw evidence of it, and now I was seeing it with my eyes thanks to the rain. And I was like, I remembered this when I was in the hospital. It would just calm me the fuck down. I would calm down so quick. If I were angry at one of the nurses for stabbing me in the arm or something, or maybe the food that they brought me wasn't the food that I was allowed to eat, because sometimes the doctors tell you that you're not allowed to eat certain foods, and the nurses would bring me the foods anyway. I'd get angry, but I'd just think about the wind in Patagonia, the Patagonian wind, and I would calm right down. So that was that's the second thing I had. That's the second, ace up my sleeve. That's for when I was angry or really sad. I'd think about that. And then the third thing that I had was when I had to sleep. Sometimes, like sleep, you get used to sleeping whenever you want. Like, the truth is, I could sleep through anything. I was already a deep sleeper in the olden times. But now I'm a professional sleeper in like tough situations. And what happened was, but sometimes I couldn't sleep because of, I don't know, anxiety or pain or something like that. And so what I would do is I had my third ace up my sleeve, which was which is actually any man with someone close to them, a significant other, that a life partner, or whatever you want to call him or her, they, anyone in this situation can attest to. It's when you lay your head on that person's chest or belly. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I do, if whenever I do that with my girlfriend, whenever I put my head on her chest, like, give me 1 minute of like that and maybe stroking my head and I will fall asleep instantly. It's annoyingly instant. Like, my girlfriend will get super pissed and start slapping my head so I didn't fall asleep. But I had this memory of all the times that she would be laying down, we'd probably be watching something on the TV, on the computer, and then I'd just like close my eyes and then start snoring and sleeping. and sometimes when she was merciful, she would let me sleep and then wake me up after like a minute. Or if she wasn't feeling merciful, she would be like, "Hey, wake up, idiot." and I'd wake up. But when I was in the hospital, I could imagine this as many times as I wanted, and it worked every time. I would fall asleep instantly. And so that's the third memory I had that I used as a weapon. So I had my grandfather helping me out when when I needed to ground myself because I was getting anxious, and I was getting anxiety attacks and the walls were closing in. And I had my adventures with Rooster and of course Patagonia. Patagonia helping me out when I was feeling sad or angry or tense, or just emotionally unstable. And I had my girlfriend to help me when I needed to sleep. And it worked, and I didn't have any like serious panic attacks or anything like that. Luckily the psychologist would call and she'd be like, "Did you have any panic attacks or anything like that? Because it's been 2 months, or I don't know, it's been a month, or oh, because I heard about the pain." And I'd be like, no, I'm good. That's all thanks to these beautiful memories I had and the beautiful people that surround me. Yeah, friends, family, loved ones. That's why part of the support isn't just from people around you all the time. It's from people that have changed your life or affected your life or given you beautiful memories in the past. Yeah, which is actually something I'm going to talk about in the near future. I'm gonna skip I'm gonna skip to the fountain really quick, so that we can end this episode, and then I'm gonna come back here behind the scenes and finish these people. Just destroy them, massacre them. Yeah, there we go. Look, perfect ending to the perfect episode. Thank you so much for watching. I had a really good time reliving these beautiful memories. And I hope these memories help you find these aces up your sleeves that you can use anytime. Trust me, they're lifesavers. Sometimes it's good to think about the past. Just don't dwell on it. I love you guys. See you in the next episode. Bye.